sort, and then you have the lattice work around the bottom. And I see one that looks like fieldstone of some sort. Or something. What are the...
Well, we generally on because they're only about 15 to 30,000 pounds. They're not huge weight. We put in footings, 18 by 18, maybe 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot deep, and that's your flat footing on the ground. And we actually make a pier that's steel plate top and bottom, steel tube in the middle, and that allows you to bolt onto the house and take the cable, runs all the way up through the house, comes out the bottom side, the stainless steel cable. You basically turnbuckle that onto the footing the pier is sitting on, so you're holding the house down into the ground that way. And those, you take a couple bags of concrete per pier, not a whole lot of concrete in it that way. And in theory, you can come back in there, unbolt the house from the piers, jack it up, put a trailer under it, take your piers with you and go, and all you're leaving is 6 or 9 pads in the ground. And go to the next place and do it again.
Yeah, I remember when I was a little kid, he lived in the house, and I think I had to stay in the hospital 12 extra days, but my father had to put electricity in there. But he said when he knocked the cutting the lines, the electric lines, so the pastor had horse in the area. They expected it. The 1750s, this is Pennsylvania.
Yeah, up there you had a lot of that. Down here, we had wood. We had lots and lots and lots and lots of wood. So the difference between up here and building, north is, up north they had brick, a lot of brick, a lot of used mineral resources of various sorts and quarries and for stone. And so you see brick and stone up north because of the weather, durability versus paint and stuff like that. But plaster over lath is real common up in Missouri and St. Louis, Chicago, all there. And it makes it a bugger to harvest the lumber, to salvage it, because really plaster is not good for you. And horsehair, breeding horsehair and stuff like that, it's not good for you. And anytime you're dealing with rock or any sort of aggregate like that, the dust is bad for your lungs. Yeah, it's really bad for your lungs. Of course, when you're dealing with salvage, you also have to worry about rat poop, pigeon poop, bat poop. And if you have allergies, molds, and so there's lots of things that you're going to run into when you're doing salvage. It's not like it's a pure, clean environment. It isn't.
You don't wear masks?
Well, everybody's supposed to. Whether they do or not, everybody gets sweaty, they get hot, they pull the mask off, they think nose hairs make great filters. And yeah, that's what they, in a lot of cases they do. And we've had guys get, sick before because they didn't pay attention to the rules, or guys that just starting off and don't know. And you also have to have some common sense about deconstruction. You don't take the walls out before you take the roof off. I've seen guys out there and they're taking almost all the walls off, and then they're over taking the roof off, and you're going, teeter-totter, teeter-totter, it's amazing how many people don't understand how gravity works.
I don't want to be deconstruction. I want to be building.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. There's certain people that are great for the deconstruction part, and certain people that will be great. It's like nail pulling. 10 or 15 minutes, I'm a bandit, boy. But then after about an hour, you're going, oh man, there's got to be something else to be doing with my life other than pulling nails. And there's other guys out there that are just so happy. There's a whole stack of nails over there. I got a job, man. I'm so happy. I'm happy, happy, happy. Because they're focused.
Like he's had 200 employees. Now he's gone through 200 to get 12. So.
Well, the guys we're in the building side of it, but the salvage side of it, it's the same sort of issue. You get certain people are great at it.
I got a friend who's got 5,000 acres in East Texas. It's all virgin land.
Wow.
And every once in a few years, he'll allow someone to come in and take out a few big trees. He built his first house out of the material that was on that land. And he decided that he liked the area where the house was, so that he was going to move the house and build his new house there. So they tried pulling the wood apart, and it was actually built out of green lumber, and you aren't pulling the nails out. Just forget it.
The sap
it wasn't coming.
The sap is...
And so finally they took a bulldozer and literally just pushed the entire house, and it did not break a single bone.
That's sap.
I'm not kidding.
It's like glue.
It really is. We built our houses now. The last time we shipped up to Breckenridge, and they craned them in because couldn't get a trailer into the location, so we craned them. And the porch suspended. I had the porch built on it when we shipped it. And they put the 2 bars about 10 foot in from each side of the end of the house. It was a 20-foot house, so about 8 foot in, and lifted it up with my porch just suspended out there in the middle of nowhere. nothing on them, no brackets or anything. They picked them up and moved them into place, and also did a chapel. And the chapel had a wooden vestibule on the front, and it was all had the cutouts, the Gothic cutouts, and little benches on the front porch, and that didn't have any support under it. And they picked that up and they went over and put it in place. And that probably weighed 800 pounds just for that porch, and nothing came apart. And so when the nails grab on, even in the wood now that is cured, it doesn't let it go. I mean, it's just a whole different world. And we did a few other things. We cabled it and some things like that to make it extra strong. But the difference between old wood, again, green or otherwise, is that it holds a nail. Yeah.
Here in San Antonio, have you ever heard of Edgar Dodson?
No.
No, he takes these homes from the 30s and 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Trinity, a friend of mine used to live there by the Trinity, where the tennis courts are now. But he takes, I think he needs like 26 homes from Trinity, but they're the homes from the 30s and 40s. You can't get them now. You know, they were able to just lift them up, and he has a site over there in 1604 where they're homes, but again, they're not from the 60s or 70s. They're from the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah, it's gotten prohibitively expensive for a lot of people to move old houses. A, because they cost a lot to move them per mile, but also when you get to where you're going, a lot of times you have to go back in and retrofit them because your wiring is outdated or your plumbing's outdated, and then you end up cutting up your walls and stuff. And it's viable, but I've seen a lot of great houses end up being dismantled because it was just too expensive to pick them up and move them.
Yeah, he moved for example, he moved a frame house from the McVeigh Arts Institute to the Mitchell Lake, and that little house is the information center for Mitchell Lake on South Side San Antonio. It was probably built back in the 20s or 30s.
Well, I'm a firm believer in preserving anything you can. That's why in my last lifetime working in Austin, I did a lot of rehab in East Austin of old houses. And we try to save anything I possibly could. I mean, we take it down to just nothing but floor joists and studs in the wall and roofing joists and rafters, and rebuild the house around it rather than destroy it. But I also learned through that process that it's very expensive, and in the end, a lot of times you can't get as good a product as you can building new. But I don't want to build new with new materials.
I'm glad my husband's not here listening to you. Because we have an old house built in the 40s, and what I want to do is take it down to the stud and redo it.
So a way to get it insulated and everything else.
A few bump outs. And he's like, well, it's going to cost more to do it this way. Let's just move it. Let's just do this with it. Let's do that. And I was like, why does not listen to hearing you?
It's when it comes right down to the costing of it. If you tear it all the way down, usually what you find out is that you're going to have all sorts of other cans of worms get opened up. The termites have been in there. Or, you know, we like to think, oh, the old guys, they always used to build so great. Hey, there was just as many screw-ups in the old days as there are now. I see it all the time where they built something that looks great, but you get inside of it, it's like, oh my God, what were they thinking?
Yeah, where's the stuff?
It held up, you know, it was able to do it, but it's like, there's a lot of things that weren't square, and you get in there and start trying to plumb, and but the biggest problem we run into is bug damage and water rot underneath houses that just end up being, it opens up all sorts of cans of worms. It really does. Or bees' nests inside, and there's lots of goodies when you start taking a house apart.
Well, you talk about cypress. The house that I have on my farm is over 100 years old, and that was built from cypress that was on Geronimo Creek. There are no cypress on Geronimo Creek anymore. They've all been cut down.
That's pretty typical. The black walnut was the same thing. They went down the rivers. The furniture builders followed the saw guys down the rivers. And at one time, black walnut was abundant, absolutely abundant in this state, all along the rivers, along with the cypress. And they chopped all that down too. The black walnut's a slow-growing tree, same as a cypress tree. We have no vision whatsoever, except when you go to these few places where you see stands of cypress. But to think that they actually followed all of our rivers all the way around, all the way down. They were gigantic cypress trees that were hundreds and hundreds of years old.